The year is 2342. Above Earth, a silent, menacing armada hung in the black void. These were the Kryll, an aquatic, militaristic species from the depths of the Glargan Nebula. And they weren't here for tea. Their ships, shaped like colossal obsidian, sea creatures blockaded every conceivable exit point, a chilling testament to their aquatic dominance. From the Kryll flagship, the Leviathan's maw, a single transport beam snared its unexpected prey. One human. His name was Dave, and he was currently regretting his decision to take the scenic route to the grocery store. Dave found himself unceremoniously deposited in a cavernous chamber aboard the Leviathan's maw. The air was thick with a humid, salty tang, and the gravity felt wobbly. Before him stood Commander Kryll 9, a towering figure encased in bioluminescent armor, flanked by several equally intimidating Kryll warriors. Kryll 9 regarded Dave with cold, amphibian eyes. "Human, you are designated Dave. Explain the purpose of your species." Dave, still adjusting to the gravity, shrugged. "Purpose? I'm mostly just trying to get through the day, you know? Like find some good coffee, maybe binge watch a show. You guys into shows?" The Kryll exchanged confused glances. This was not the response their meticulous battle simulations had predicted. According to their calculations, humans should be either trembling with fear or launching some sort of futile counterattack. This casualness was unsettling. "Explain coffee," Kryll 9 demanded, his voice a guttural rumble that vibrated through the chamber. "Oh, right, coffee. It's like roasted beans. You grind them up, pour hot water over it, and it wakes you up. Super useful for, not conquering planets," Dave offered helpfully, a wry smile playing on his lips. The Kryll warriors shifted, uncomfortably. The human was either incredibly stupid or subtly mocking them. Kryll 9 suspected the latter, but he couldn't quite decipher the intent. Their sensors indicated no weapons, no signs of aggression, just an unnerving chillness. "Your customs are illogical," Kryll 9 stated flatly. "You display no fear in the face of superior force. Explain this defiance." Dave chuckled, scratching the back of his head. "Defiance? Nah, man, I'm just not a morning person. Besides, you guys haven't even offered me a drink. What kind of hosts are you?" The Kryll were completely baffled. They had blockaded an entire planet, prepared for galactic war, and this human was complaining about hospitality. It was absurd. "We are here to assess your planet's threat level," Kryll 9 boomed, trying to regain control of the interrogation. "Your technology, your defenses, your cultural significance." "Cultural significance? Well, we invented the internet," Dave said proudly. "Also, cats playing pianos, that's gotta count for something, right?" The Kryll's internal communication channels buzzed with panicked queries. Was this information accurate? Were cats playing pianos a viable weapon of mass disruption? Kryll 9 felt a headache brewing behind his amphibian brow. Dealing with this human was proving far more challenging than any orbital bombardment. Dave's attempts to bridge the interspecies gap only widened it further. He figured a little humor might lighten the mood, but his jokes landed with the grace of a lead balloon in zero gravity. "So, why did the nebula cross the spaceway?" He'd asked, grinning. The Kryll just stared, their bioluminescent eyes unblinking. "To get to the other side, get it? 'Cause it's like really far?" Silence. Kryll 9 simply tilted his head, a gesture that Dave interpreted as either deep confusion or a sign of impending doom. "Perhaps," Kryll 9 responded, his voice devoid of any discernible emotion. "Your attempts at levity are a primitive form of psychological warfare. Explain the strategic advantage of the other side." Dave sighed. This was going to be a long day. His relaxed attitude didn't help matters. Where the Kryll saw a potential prisoner of war, they found a guy who acted like he was waiting for a bus. He leaned against bulkheads, whistled tunelessly, and even tried to bargain for a better chair, claiming his lower back was acting up. The Kryll saw this casualness as blatant disrespect. "Your lack of decorum is concerning," Kryll 9 stated, his gills fluttering slightly, a sign of agitation that Dave completely missed. "You are in the presence of the Kryll High Command. Show some appropriate subservience. Dave, oblivious, just shrugged. Subservience? Nah, not really my thing. I'm more of a treat everyone as equals, unless they're being a jerk kind of guy. This naturally only deepened the Kryll's suspicion. They couldn't fathom someone not being intimidated by their superior firepower and rigid social hierarchy. Meanwhile, Dave was having his own issues deciphering the Kryll's intentions. Their constant talk of assessing threat levels and evaluating planetary defenses sounded like a prelude to a galactic property survey, not an invasion. So, are you guys, thinking of buying Earth? He asked Kryll 9 during one particularly tense interrogation session. Because, fair warning, the housing market's a nightmare. You're better off investing in, Martian real estate. I hear the views are great. Kryll 9 stared at Dave, utterly dumbfounded. Was this a coded message? A desperate attempt to negotiate? Or was the human simply insane? The Kryll commander began to suspect that dealing with Earth might be more trouble than it was worth. Their culture, their customs, their complete inability to understand basic threats. It was all incredibly bizarre and incredibly annoying. The Kryll, deciding that subtlety had failed, opted for a more direct approach. They led Dave through a series of sterile corridors, the metallic tang of the ship's atmosphere clinging to the air. Finally, they arrived at a vast chamber, the scale of which was designed to inspire awe and, presumably, terror. In the center of the room stood it, the planet Cracker. An enormous sonic resonator, a device of such immense power that it could, according to Kryll 9, shatter a planet like a dropped teacup. It was a symphony of polished chrome and pulsating energy conduits, a monument to the Kryll's technological superiority. Kryll 9 gestured towards the device with a fin. "Behold, human," he announced, his voice echoing slightly in the cavernous space. "The culmination of centuries of Kryll engineering, the instrument of your world's reformatting." The Kryll commander paused, clearly pleased with his choice of words. Reformatting sounded so much more efficient than destruction. Dave, however, didn't seem particularly impressed. He circled the resonator slowly, his hands clasped behind, his back like a tourist admiring a slightly oversized paperweight. "So this is it, huh?" he said, tilting his head. "The big kahuna, the Doombringer. Bit bigger than I expected, to be honest." The Kryll exchanged uneasy glances. This wasn't the reaction they'd anticipated. They'd expected fear, desperation, perhaps even a futile attempt at resistance. What they got was mild curiosity. "You are not intimidated?" Kryll 9 asked, his voice laced with disbelief. "This device is capable of obliterating your planet, reducing it to cosmic dust." Dave shrugged. "Hey, I've seen worse. You ever been to a demolition derby? Now, that's impressive." He continued to circle the resonator, seemingly oblivious to the gravity of the situation. "So, how does this thing work exactly? Does it, vibrate the planet apart? Or is it more of a resonance thing?" Kryll 9 struggled to maintain his composure. "It is a highly sophisticated application of focused sonic energy," he explained, his voice becoming strained. "Its principles are far beyond your primitive comprehension." Dave stopped and peered at the resonator, squinting slightly. "Sonic energy, huh? So, really loud music?" The Kryll commander's gills flared again, a sure sign that his patience was wearing thin. "It is not music, human. It is a weapon of unimaginable power." Dave seemed unconvinced. Yeah, I get it. Big weapon. Scary stuff. But, you wouldn't mind if I touched it, would you?" The Kryll were aghast. "Touch it?" Kryll 9 exclaimed. "Are you insane? That is strictly forbidden. The resonator is highly sensitive. Any unauthorized contact could, he sputtered, unable to articulate the potential consequences of Dave's recklessness. Dave, of course, was already reaching out a hand. "Just a quick feel," he said, his fingers hovering over the smooth, metallic surface of the planet Cracker. "Gotta get a sense of the craftsmanship, you know." Dave ran his hand along the cool metal of the resonator, a thoughtful expression on his face. He tapped it lightly, listening to the faint hum that resonated deep within the device. Huh, he said, more to himself than to the Kryll. Interesting. Kryll 9 watched him with a mixture of apprehension and bewilderment. Human, I must warn you again. Tampering with the resonator is strictly prohibited. Cease this inappropriate fondling immediately. Dave ignored him, continuing to examine the device with a growing sense of recognition. He leaned closer, his eyes scanning the intricate patterns etched into the resonator's surface. Wait a minute, he murmured, a grin slowly spreading across his face. I know this pattern. I know this frequency. He straightened up, turning to face the Kryll commander with an almost childlike excitement. You guys aren't going to believe this, he said, his voice filled with amusement. But on Earth, we use this exact same frequency for something completely different. The Kryll exchanged confused glances. Different? Kryll 9 repeated, his voice laced with suspicion. What do you mean, different? This is a weapon of planetary destruction. There is nothing else it could possibly be used for, Dave chuckled. Oh, but there is, he said, shaking his head. Believe me, there is. On Earth, this frequency, this is what we use for party music. The Kryll were visibly stunned. Their mandibles twitched, their eyes widened, and their gills flared in disbelief. Party music? Kryll 9 finally managed to stammer, his voice barely above a whisper. You are suggesting that this instrument of annihilation is nothing more than musical entertainment. Dave nodded, his grin widening. Yep, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's a bit bass-heavy for my taste, but yeah, definitely party music. We call it, well, it depends on the exact subgenre, but it's usually something like interdimensional sonic boom or planetary wobble. The Kryll were utterly baffled. They looked at each other, then back at Dave, then back at the resonator, as if trying to reconcile the image of a planet-shattering weapon with the concept of dancing. This is preposterous, Kryll 9 exclaimed, finally regaining his composure. You are lying. This is a clear attempt to deceive us, to undermine our mission. Dave shrugged. Hey, I'm just telling you what it is. You don't have to believe me. But I'm pretty sure if you played this thing at a decent volume, you'd get a whole lot of Kryll grooving. Kryll 9 narrowed his eyes, his suspicion deepening. Grooving? He repeated, his voice dripping with disdain. What is this grooving you speak of? Some sort of primitive Earth ritual? You could call it that, Dave said with a wink. Or you could just call it having a good time. He paused, then added with a mischievous glint in his eye. You know, for beings about to destroy a planet, you guys seem awfully uptight. Dave leaned against the resonator, unfazed by the Kryll's mounting disbelief. Look, I'm just saying, don't knock it till you try it. Crank this baby up, and you might just find yourselves enjoying the end of the world a little bit more. Kryll 9 sputtered, his gills flapping rapidly. Enjoying? This is not a matter of enjoyment. This is a matter of galactic imperative. We are Kryll. We do not enjoy destruction. We administer it. Dave smirked. All right, Mr. Serious, but seriously, what's the harm in a little test run? Just a quick blast to see what it does? For scientific purposes, of course. He winked, and even through the Kryll's rigid facial structure, Dave thought he detected a flicker of curiosity in Kryll 9's eyes. The Kryll commander hesitated, his mandibles twitching in indecision. The concept of deviating from protocol was clearly agonizing to him. I cannot authorize such a frivolous action, Kryll 9 stammered. The risk is too great. We do not know what unintended consequences might arise. Dave pressed on, his voice persuasive. Come on, where's your sense of adventure? Besides, think of it as gathering intel. If we know exactly what this thing does, we can be even more effective at administering destruction. After a tense moment of internal struggle, Kryll 9 finally relented, though his tone made it clear he was still deeply uncomfortable. Very well, he said, his voice tight. We will conduct a controlled test, but only for a brief duration and only at a low power setting. Is that understood? Dave grinned. Loud and clear, Captain Funsucker. Just try to keep an open mind, okay? He gestured towards the control panel. Now let's get this party started. Kryll 9 reluctantly barked out a series of commands to his bridge officers. The Kryll, still bewildered by the turn of events, reluctantly complied, their eyes darting nervously between Dave and the ominous resonator. With a deep hum, the resonator began to charge. A low, pulsing thrum filled the bridge, vibrating through the Kryll's aquatic bodies. Dave tapped his foot, his grin widening as the energy built. "Here we go," he muttered, anticipation in his voice. "Let's see if these guys can handle the base." Then, at Kryll 9's command, the resonator unleashed its full power. The bridge was flooded with an intense wave of sonic energy, far beyond what the Kryll had anticipated. But something unexpected happened. Instead of destruction, a wave of euphoria washed over the Kryll. The frequency, perfectly attuned to their aquatic nervous systems, triggered an involuntary release of pleasure chemicals in their brains. Their rigid bodies began to sway, their mandibles twitched in rhythm and their eyes glazed over with bliss. Kryll 9, the epitome of Kryll stoicism, found himself unable to resist the overwhelming sensation. His body convulsed, his gills flapped wildly, and a strange gurgling sound escaped his throat. The entire bridge crew was similarly affected. Kryll warriors, trained to show no emotion, were now writhing and undulating, their bodies moving to the irresistible rhythm of the resonator. The effect rippled outwards, spreading through the entire Kryll fleet. On every ship, Kryll warriors, engineers, and officers abandoned their posts, succumbing to the irresistible urge to dance. The fleet, once a symbol of implacable military might, transformed into a massive, synchronized rave, pulsating with light and sound. Dave watched the chaos unfold, his grin widening with each passing moment. "I told you," he said, chuckling to himself. "Everybody loves a good party." Even Kryll 9, lost in the throes of ecstatic sensation, managed to croak out a single slurred word. "More." The Kryll fleet, once poised to obliterate Earth, now pulsed with a different kind of energy. Gone was the rigid discipline, the cold calculation, replaced by an ocean of ecstatic movement. Ships that had been armed to the teeth now vibrated with irresistible euphoric rhythms. The Kryll had traded, in their war cries, for, well, something that sounded suspiciously like happy gurgling. Dave watched it all from the bridge of the flagship, a smug grin plastered across his face. Even Kryll 9, still swaying uncontrollably, managed to give him a sort of blissed-out nod. The former commander's eyes, usually narrowed with stern authority, were now wide and unfocused, reflecting the swirling lights of the impromptu rave. The transformation was complete. The Kryll, it turned out, weren't conquerors. They were just aquatic creatures with a previously undiscovered need to boogie. The planet cracker was now a galactic discotheque. Earth, of course, was saved. Not by valiant heroes or advanced technology, but by the universal appeal of a good beat. The Kryll, thoroughly addicted to the sonic euphoria, abandoned their plans for planetary destruction. They had a new mission now, to acquire more sonic entertainment. Negotiations began, and Earth, surprisingly, held all the cards. Or, more accurately, all the records. Dave, the accidental savior of the planet, found himself thrust into the role of cultural ambassador. His mission? To introduce the galaxy to the vast and varied world of Earth music. He started with the classics, disco, funk, a little bit of classic rock. The Kryll, predictably, went wild for anything with a strong bass line, but Dave didn't stop there. He branched out, introducing them to jazz, blues, even a little bit of polka. He even played them some bagpipe music just to see their reaction. It was mixed. The galaxy, it turned out, had a serious need for some tunes. One by one, other species succumbed to the irresistible rhythms of Earth music. The once feared, Kryll became known as the galaxy's premier party animals, their warships retrofitted with state-of-the-art sound systems. Dave, meanwhile, became a legend. He traveled the galaxy, DJing at interspecies raves, brokering peace treaties through the power of music, and generally making sure everyone had a good time. He even started wearing a sparkly jumpsuit. He never Quite got used to the fame, but he enjoyed the perks. Free drinks, adoring fans, and the satisfaction of knowing he'd saved the world. Not with a bang, but with a beat. And every now and then, when he was feeling particularly nostalgic, he'd crank up the old sonic resonator just to remind himself of the day the Kryll fleet threw the biggest, weirdest, and most unexpected party the galaxy had ever seen. The Earth, now defended by its superior beats, entered an era of galactic peace and prosperity, where music bridged the gaps between civilizations, and even the most stoic alien species couldn't resist the urge to dance. And Dave? Well, he was just getting started. He had plans for a galactic karaoke competition, and he was pretty sure he could convince the Kryll to be the judges. After all, who knew more about